webinar series. And this is really an honor to have with us someone like Justice Kurian Joseph, Ms. Kanchan Pamnani, Mr. Amar Jain, and Professor R.K. Chaudhary. We are launching our webinar series here on lawyers with disabilities. And I'm thankful to LawSikho and its co-founder and CEO, Mr. Ramanuj Mukherjee, for asking me to host this series. Now, Ramanuj had posted something very interesting on LinkedIn. He said that he would like me to host because he wants to learn more on this, and he thinks he does not know enough on the subject. Now, this is interesting because sometimes we think we know about a subject, and that kind of restricts our ability to understand it further. So I thought, let me moderate the session from a place where I would believe that I don't know the wide range of issues, accessibility issues that people with disabilities have, and the wide range of experiences that people with the same disability or different disabilities may have. So I would request you all to approach it from the same perspective and to listen to anyone's experience with an open mind, and for a lack of better word, try to be non-judgmental, because they are all their own experiences, just like you may have your own. So with this, I would like to start a session. We have our sign language interpreter with us, Nataraj. So we request our speakers to go a bit slow, because then it would facilitate interpretation. Also, we respect the access needs that people may have. So if any of you have any other access needs that are not being met, please do get in touch with us. We'll put an email ID in the inbox so that you can contact us on that if you have any other access needs. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or you want to leave the session, you're getting overwhelmed, you can do that, you can come back again. We're also live on YouTube. The YouTube video will be available for later use as well. So you can always watch it later. Now, with that, this is a bit about the logistics. Now, a little bit about how this webinar series came into existence. Now, facing a disability myself, it gave me an access to know the specific needs that people with disabilities may have. And it also gave me a perspective that I soon realized was shared by people with disabilities, other people with disabilities as well. So with that in mind, when I joined the legal profession in 2014, I would often wonder how anybody on a wheelchair would make it through the corridors, crowded corridors of the Supreme Court every day. When you think of accessibility, sometimes what comes to mind, I know there are people working in the sector who are with us, there are people with specific needs with us, but sometimes with people what comes to mind are only ramps. But there's so many types of disabilities with so many different needs that people may have, that one wonders that there may be students out there who would not even think of studying law because they think that their needs are not going to be met in the system. So it's like asking a woman to either become a teacher or become a nurse, or you sit at home and you can do anything from home. So we are living it in that age when it comes to people with disabilities. So what is it? What is it that we can do about underrepresentation of lawyers with disabilities? And how do you make it possible for students to choose to dream of making it in the legal profession? And how do you make it easier, or how do you ensure full participation full and effective participation of lawyers with disabilities? Are they really different questions, or are they one? So this is the broad theme of this webinar series. And today we are going to deal with a broad overview on the subject with Ms. Kanchan Pamnani as our first speaker. She holds a postgraduate degree in law from Bombay University, besides being a graduate in commerce. She has also done courses from WIPO, and she's also qualified to practice as a solicitor in England and Wales. She's a very establishing practicing lawyer right now and solicitor in Bombay High Court. She deals with corporate cases, testamentary cases, disability law cases. So let's hear from her what her journey has been and what it takes to be Kanchan Pamnani. Over to you, ma'am. Please begin whenever you're ready.
I am not being able to unmute her actually. Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Bhamna.
Yeah, I'm not actually being able to unmute her.
It's okay. Just give her some time.
Yeah.
जूम को खोलो ना.
We can hear you. You are already unmuted. Please continue to talk. We can hear you.
हमारा क्या मैन पावर है, क्या लोग हैं, क्या देख रहा है ना. आज उनका कास्टिंग आया था कि आप प्रेशराइज करते रहो, आगे बढ़ जाएंगे.
I would request the participants to please be on mute. Thank you. Thank you so much. Kanchan, are you with us?
Yeah, hi. I can see her, but there is some issue with her audio, I guess.
I see.
Because we can start with Amar sir if you want.
Sure, let's do that. So Amar is an advocate and he's also an accessibility professional. He's also a certified web accessibility professional, and he's a lawyer who works in the corporate sector. He has been working there for over 6 years now, and he would share with us his experiences of being in corporate sector and the issues that he faces as a lawyer with a disability in the corporate sector, as well as how these issues can be resolved. Over to you, Amar. If you can also talk a bit about the work you do with the disability sector as well, along with pointing the issues that we have in the corporate sector.
Sure. Thanks, Sanchita, and I'm clearly audible, right?
Yes, you are, Amar.
Thank you. So thank you, first of all, LawSikho team for doing this. It's a much needed initiative for sensitization. Let me briefly tell you about how I started and how it really started, how the journey started. I come from a Hindi medium blind school based out of Jodhpur, Rajasthan. I did my schooling from there. And being brought up in a setup like Rajasthan, where sort of we still think traditionally, people thought that the only career meant for me was either teaching or music industry. And I didn't want to do either of them. I wanted to do something different. So finally, I mean, after facing a lot of resistance from people, from friends, relatives, and all of that, decided to sort of do law. and came to Bombay, did my law from GLC, Government Law College, Mumbai. And then I started working with law firms. I'm still working with the law firm, and I've worked in the areas of capital markets and banking and finance, respectively. I'm right now in capital markets. So back in 2013, when I joined this profession, it wasn't, known to people that even people with blindness can become a transactional lawyer. Because of course, one fact was that there were not too many people who were practicing in corporate sector as such. There were lawyers. There are of course lawyers who continue to do this litigation, but nobody was doing transactional lawyering per se. So I think the real challenge, if I may talk about, was firstly seeing an environment which can accommodate you, that we talk of reasonable accommodations, accessibility, and then the challenge was of accessibility and availability of the. I remember when I joined in 2013, technology wasn't there where you could even deal with, let's say, a prospectus, which could be anywhere between 500 to 700 pages or even more than that. Crash, and it was difficult to form back then. But in last sorry, I think my internet connection is slightly unstable. My apologies for that. In last 6 to 7 years, technology really changed the way even people with blindness or people with other disabilities can become lawyers. Today, I can confidently say that, even dealing with 30,000 pages document is not difficult if you have the latest technology available with you. So for a person with any disability, and especially for a person with blindness, what is really needed is access to the latest technology. So your IT and procurement team has to really be sort of up for buying the latest softwares and deploying latest softwares, because mostly what happens in a setup like this is that firms deploy. So if your new -1 is the norm in IT industry, so you don't deploy the latest upgrade. Now that is a problem for a person with disability, because what happens is assistive technology. So we use a software which reads out what gets displayed on screen, which is called a screen reader. So when you try to use that software, it is because it's an assistive technology. It provides you access to existing technology through making its own adjustments. So it's always compatible with the latest technology. So that's very important. The second thing which is important is that how do you ensure the kind of work which is doable for persons with disability? For example, for me, initially due diligence was a big challenge, which still remains a challenge, because if you give a data room access where we are doing due diligence and you haven't given even the rights to perform OCR, which is your optical character recognition, then I can't really read that document. The only way I have to deal with it is to print the document and rescan again. So that's a problem. So when we preserve confidentiality, when we sort of protect the documents, for example, so that becomes a problem. So complete protected documents. So accessibility remains a big sort of concern. Accessibility, you can talk of accessibility of filing portals like MCA 21, your income tax website, or a couple of others where accessibility continues to be a big challenge. Even regulatory authorities, the regulations and all of those circulars, notifications which are being passed, the databases, SCC Online, for example, till date remains inaccessible. So that is one key concern. The second thing which is also important is how do you measure performance metrics of persons with disability? Because in a setup like this, your billable hours are the most critical thing, right? So when you are dealing with that concept, and then when you're assessing person with disability, and then when we require reasonable accommodation of, say, time factor to convert the relevant material for us to be able to read, that impacts the billable hour. So how do you measure that? That's the second thing which we need to think upon. Third thing is there is a need of sensitization. There is a greater need of sensitization. What type of works should be assigned, how timelines should be assigned, all of those factors also affect. But in all, I can definitely say that today, as things are becoming machine readable and as things are becoming, you're driving towards e-filing, virtual hearings, for example, in litigation sector, in law firm, or law firms or corporate setups, we already deal with sort of complete virtual sort of transaction. I mean, barring your kickoff and maybe few drafting sessions, everything is virtual. So people with disabilities can really become great performers if we have the right sort of infrastructure and access to latest technology, as well as right awareness as to what kind of how do you deal with sort of work assignment and timelines and everything. It's definitely doable. So yeah, I think with that, I would give it back to Sanchita.
Thank you so much, Amar. Thank you, Amar. We have Kanchan with us. So, Kanchan, would you like to go?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Can I switch off my video for a bit, or
sure.
You think is it possible if I do that?
Yes, we can do that. Can we switch off Kanchan's video, please?
No, just 1 second. Just 1 second. Just 1 second.
No
just
problem.
1 second. Let me just see if I can do this.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, I was telling you a little bit about my life and how I started, and therefore the experiences and the challenges that I have faced. A lot of what Amar said is, of course, true, and we have to look at that. But I'll tell you my story a little differently. And I'm like one generation older than Amar, so I will tell you the problems that I have faced. And I started with a culture of paper, and many drafts, many copies of many drafts. So when I was young, I was low visioned, and we never measured the percentage because there was nothing like that at that time. So I went to school with thick glasses with a +11 number. I sat in class, at the front of the class, and tried to see the blackboard as well as my neighbors' papers so that I could write my homework, my classwork. But I managed because I could hear my teacher clearly. I paid attention, and my other senses were heightened at that time as well. Went through school, always wanting to be a lawyer. My dad was a lawyer. I always wanted to be one. He wasn't keen at all that I was a lawyer because he said, you have, books with small print, and with a person with such bad vision, how are you going to read? There was no question of technology in those days, not the technology that we know today. So there I was, went through my graduation in commerce, and again thinking, what am I going to do with myself? I decided I'll try all the exams, the MBA entrance exams, the GMAT, the GRE, the TOEFL, everything I wanted to do. Then maybe I'll do my 16th year and go abroad. But life had its own decision making. So there I was, after my BCom year, only eligible to go for law, because all my other fees had lapsed and I couldn't do anything else, and I had to join law. And I was thrilled. I was actually thrilled to be in a law college. My handwriting was awful. I could barely read because I'd had retina detachments by that time. So I could read, but I couldn't read very much. But I managed. I attended lectures regularly, sat at the back of the class, paid attention to my professors, and learned my work. My colleagues, my friends who were in class with me, some of them have become better lawyers than me. Some are not as good as me. So I'm somewhere in the middle of the class. My vision hasn't hampered me in that sense. I went and worked for a law firm, a middle-sized but a litigating law firm. I learned a lot of litigation at that time. What was difficult was, if you were in court, you got a paper at the last moment, an affidavit across the bar, and then suddenly reading it. And the same problem persists even today. The biggest litigant, the government, they serve you an affidavit in court, in the high court. Forget about the smaller courts. And I have a major problem there. But other than that, when you get your documents, and a lot of them come on email now, earlier they used to come in hard copy, but technology is there to read your documents for you. There's no secrecy breached. There's nothing on privacy that I have done wrong. I can read them. I do not need anybody to read them for me. However, a lot of lawyers do ask their assistants and juniors to read. So what's the harm if I had asked mine? But no, there's no requirement. You can do it yourself. Drafting, no difficulty whatsoever. As long as your language is clear, your thoughts are in place, and your knowledge is there. You can draft any document you need to draft. You can amend them. You can do track changes. Yes, it does get complicated by the fourth or fifth change. I will have a problem there. But other than that, it's fine. I can do it. Even when there are lots of changes, you can clean up the draft and read the whole thing, and you know where the changes are actually. Research has become a lot easier. It's online, but a lot of websites are not accessible. So they're not properly designed. They don't follow the international standards, and we do suffer for them. Courts have become more accessible in the sense, physical accessibility. There are ramps now to enter the courts, not in all of them, but some of them. Of course, there are places where you'll go on a ramp and then you'll end up against a wall. There's nothing there. That's how even courts do not think about design. But in any way, you can go to court. There's no difficulty there. What bothers me is I have an office which is 15 minutes walking from the High Court of Bombay. The roads are broken completely, and I love high heel shoes. So there I go with my high heels. But I have to be very careful that I don't go into one of the holes there. When you go through security, the security is so narrow. I don't know how anybody gets through them. And if there's a fire in any of these courts, God help anybody to get out. But, well, that's security, and there are wires and things hanging around at all places. There are dogs sitting around the High Court also, anywhere and everywhere. Cats are basking in the sun on the ramp that leads you out of the security. These are problems that I face and others face too. Just because I'm blind doesn't mean I'm facing more than anybody else, but you also have to go past a cat. That's how, I'm sorry. Anyway, but those are the issues. When you go to the courtroom, there are people just standing around. They won't give way. And that's something, that's male-dominated India. They won't give way to a woman. They will just stand there in court. Whether it's a senior lawyer who thinks it's his birthright to be in the middle of the courtroom, or a clerk. But to edge your way to the front of the court is difficult. Bombay High Court has removed some steps. Some of the courtrooms were designed, they were not originally designed, but later on they had these steps. So you enter the courtroom, then you would have a little space, and then 3-4 steps, and then you were on a stage, and then you address a judge who was a little higher than that. So a lot of courtrooms have been recently redesigned. These steps are no more there. The stage is no more there. You're on flat ground. And there are ramps leading into the courtroom. So things have become better. We are seeing changes. I have seen them and lived them. The original ramp at the Bombay High Court was so difficult to go up. And I always thought I'm going to have a second disability because it was so difficult to go up and down. But now things are changing. And only thing is that it's not consistent. The steps, there's a riser and there's a step. If you look at the risers that have been created recently, they're all uneven. I don't know whether the Public Works Department doesn't know that, they have to be even steps or not. And nobody at the High Court will check. The lower courts, the magistrates court, etc., they're a little more difficult, I would say, because people give their applications in handwriting. So yes, I have technology that will read the handwriting even today, but it's going to create a flutter in the courtroom. If I switch on my mobile phone and start reading the handwritten draft, I would have a problem. But it will be there. Sooner or later, these are going to change. And in the new world, the e-court systems, the e-filings, and the web discussions and hearings are going to be very interesting. I don't know how far they're going to be accessible. We're looking forward to Justice Chandrachud's ideas. We've heard him say that there's a lot for the visually impaired and we're not going to be left out this time. There is the mindset of acceptance. Can a lawyer do it? Yes, why not? It's difficult to network. How do you get your clients? Because you can't, it's very difficult to go to a bar party or to a solicitor's dinner, because you have to have friends, you have to have a chamber, and like I have my own practice. So it's very difficult to be there. But, well, if you have to go, you have to go. and you make it there. Otherwise, it would be, I can't catch somebody's eye and say, hello, how are you? I'm Kanchan. But that happens. How do you get your clients? Clients come through a word of mouth. If you've done good with one matter, they refer to you, to their other friends, their families, their corporate clients, etc. So you get your work. I've had a great experience with senior management, but I've had not so good experience with lower management. I can tell you a couple of stories here. One was where I have a corporate client where they sent one of their clerks. The clerk wanted to set up some NGO. And this was when I could see some. He came to my office and he sat and discussed his matter, but he wouldn't go beyond a point, 5 minutes of discussion. He just left it there. The next discussion was only about my eyes. How do you manage? How will you do it? I don't think you can manage. And I'm like, no, go away. If you don't think I can manage, you're wasting my time. Anyway, it was a free matter. You want me to do it, forget about it. But this is not what the senior management feels, because they thought I was competent enough for them to send somebody to get some work done. And they still continue to be my client 20 years later. But this is what happens. I've had this other experience where I've been in a boardroom with the chairman of a company, and after the board meeting, I've been left at the end of the room all alone to make my way out of the room, which is unfamiliar to me. And everybody's just gone. Suddenly the chairman finds me there and he sees me walking out. He says, where are you going? 1 second, hold on. And then he says, okay, hold on a minute. I'll take you home. And when I go down and he's putting me in his car, all the junior management shows up to open the door for me. So that's how it is. There are experiences where people have tried to cut my fees because I have a visual impairment. And I don't appreciate that one bit. And I'd love to meet them now in life and say, well, you did wrong at that time. As far as clients go, if you are competent, you know your work, you will get your clients. And I have my own practice for the last 20 years now. And I'm quite happy with what I've done. I appear in court. I loved litigation. There was a time when I was switching away from litigation because I was losing sight. When I had some sight, it was very difficult in court because the judges didn't understand. I could barely see them. So they would indicate by hand, and I couldn't understand the indication. So I would continue arguing. But over time, when I lost sight, I first got frightened because I couldn't do it when I had low vision. And then I thought, oh my God, I can't do it now when I have no vision. But what happened was ultimately I'm destined for litigation. So I went back to litigation. And now the courts have accepted. They got used to the fact that I can't see and they will adjust. I don't ask for much adjustment. I do my work. I learn my work and go. And I can tell them page 25, in para this, line that, but I cannot read that line for them. The day I'm allowed to take my laptop to court, the day I can put my software on and read that sentence to them, very good. That will happen sooner or later. But at this point, it doesn't exist. I don't think I have done badly for my clients. I think I've done okay. I've been hard working. And the other problem that comes up is when you're looking at departmental work, when you have to clear objections, etc., which the department raises. All these are raised by hand. They're all handwritten. Okay, so you ask for help. You ask your secretary to go with you and you ask her to read the objection and you sit and sort it out there and then. And you initial on the sides and wherever you have to. So overall, I don't think there was any issue about my practice. I do not find that even the Supreme Court is very difficult, except that it's inaccessible. They've got steps somewhere. They've got a very, very narrow entrance to each courtroom, as if, every one of us is carrying a gun to shoot the judge. I'm not interested in doing that. I want to get in safely. I don't want to hurt my arms and my elbows, especially. Carrying books. Well, it's very difficult because you have a gown, you have a jacket, you have your books in hand, and you've got a stick in hand, or you're trying to hold on to somebody. It's a little difficult. But then I guess I'm senior now to give it to my juniors and say, please carry it in for me. But other than that, it's been tough on that front. As a woman lawyer, I've not had it so bad because I worked for a very senior lawyer initially, and I could go to the court only when I really needed to be in the court. So I didn't get abused or I heard the sexist jokes that were cracked. They're much less now. But yes, in the old days, the men were really. But today also, you don't find too many senior women lawyers, unfortunately. They're not arguing in court. A lot of senior solicitors, women who are really doing great drafting work and are sitting at office. but very few in court arguing matters fully. Yes, adjournments, you have a lot of junior women lawyers, but not so many senior. As far as the men, they want to touch, not everybody, and you have to be very careful, and as a woman yourself, and you have to make it a point to make an objection. Otherwise, they just, even if you just forget to do it or you let it slip, everyone just takes advantage unnecessarily, and there's no need for that kind of advantage, but it happens. Otherwise, work has been great, and I would suggest to anybody who thinks that they can't do it, no, you can. Everybody can be a good lawyer, and you have different fields, and you'll find your field to be there. Yes, I would have a problem in recognizing two trademarks, whether they infringe or whether they passed off. But I know the theory in trademark law, and I know where I can access, what are the questions I have to ask somebody to tell me the answers so that I can fight that case. There are some other things that I may not be able to do, but 99% of the matters I think I can handle. I think even cases like warrants and summonses and people who have to go to jail, etc. Those are, most of them are on paper. The information is there. The details are there. You can hear the evidence of the police inspector who's giving his version of it. You can hear other things as well. For those who cannot hear, there's a lot of material that is available in writing, and you can perceive more than anything else. There are other senses that work. I don't have a sixth sense, but my other senses are heightened enough to pick up, to not let the profession down. Thank you, Sanchita. Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, Kanchan ma'am, for such an amazing speech on and the way you shared your journey with us. Thank you. There are some wonderful comments in the chat box that I'll read out to you later. Let me introduce our next speaker to you all, Justice Kurian Joseph. My boss says a justice never retires. A justice is always a justice. So Justice Kurian Joseph needs no introduction. He's a former judge of the Supreme Court of India. We all know about the landmark cases that he has decided, particularly the family law cases in which he made it a point to focus on resolving the issue rather than deciding it adversarially, and kept his lawyers motivated to do the same. Besides the way he used to conduct his court, the manner in which he would listen to the lawyers, no matter whether they had the so-called face value or not, and sometimes even giving clients an opportunity to speak, it showed what kind of person he was, and it was really appreciated across the bar and the bench. Two cases that I would like to point out that he decided when he was a judge in the Kerala High Court and the Chief Justice of Himachal Pradesh High Court, because we deal with such cases even now. When he was in Kerala High Court, he took a very wide interpretation and he decided to adopt a purposive interpretation while interpreting the schedule that did not mention a disease. And so it enabled a person who had lost his vision during his service to get pensions, and that was followed in other cases as well. Similarly, when he was in Himachal Pradesh High Court, an issue that we face even under the current act, he was hearing a writ on whether a person should have got into, a person with a disability should have come under the 3% reservation or not. Justice Joseph decided to look further into the matter, and he reached the conclusion that there were not enough number of persons with disabilities, and there were unfilled seats there because because of non-suitability of candidates or non-availability of candidates. So what he held in the judgment was that you need to, relax the criteria for them. And capacity building is something that can be done even after selection. So that's something that's important even for our profession, if we can also throw some light on this point. So over to you, Justice Joseph. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Sanchita. A very warm good evening to, it is otherwise warm in Delhi, to Kanchan and my good friend Amar, dear professors, and my good friends in the fraternity, and my dear students and other gentlemen. Yeah, it's a wonderful evening. I've been attending so many webinars these days, but this one I particularly enjoy in the sense, I find a lot of meaning, lot of purpose, lot of my social obligation within me. When Sanchita asked me, we can do something about it, I was wondering what can I contribute. Yeah, but she knew what my mind is. And she told me, sir, your presence itself is good enough. Thank you, Sanchita, for those encouraging words also you spoke about me. Yeah, in my experience, she spoke about a couple of experiences. I have several such experiences. I secured an employment for a totally 100% blind lady in an establishment where in a class 4 category. So after some time, some of the officials came and told me, sir, you have burdened us like anything. I said, what happened? See, you have given a person there, but what can we do with her? And what can she do for us? We have not only to spare her, but we have to spare somebody else also to look after her. And she is doing nothing. So I told, this is your problem. Your problem is, once there is a statutory, this is not your charity. This is actually your constitutional obligation. You are not doing any charity while you accommodate somebody in the 3% category, or while you accommodate a lawyer or accommodate any person with any disability in a given situation. You are not doing any charity. This is our whole problem. We think that we are doing a charity to somebody. No. Suppose I had a child with a disability who is 100% blind. Will I be doing a charity to that child while looking after that child? I take it as my responsibility, and the child takes it as the child's right to get the love and affection and accommodation from the parents. This is exactly our constitutional scheme. Our constitution does not make any difference whether you are blind, you are deaf, you have some learning disability, you have some orthopedic disability, you have some IQ problem, you have some, that's why, if you remember, we never use this word handicap now. From the original concept of handicap, we move towards what? Challenged. Even that challenged also is gone now. Now it is differently able. Because your ability is super. Some of the areas where you think, where you act, where you work, I must say, with all humility, I may not be able to do that. So in the scheme of creation, there's no human being whom God created if you believe in God, or nature permitted if you don't believe in God, to be born, who has no faculty, who has no ability. There is some ability somewhere. I can share so many videos, etc., which are with me. A girl, born with no arms at all. She's now driving. She's now painting. She's I think doing PhD now. Yeah, there are so many things, because as the word rightly says, it is a challenge. If it is a challenge, it has to be overcome as simple as it is. We shall overcome. That's the song I like most. We never give up. We have to overcome. Now, how do we overcome? We will overcome only if we ourselves, I'm speaking about my esteemed sisters and brothers who have some problem to challenge. First of all, we have to change our mindset, as Kanchan and Amar rightly said, we are not second-class citizens. We are first-class citizens. Our country, the India, my great country, my Mahan Bharat, this country says, everybody is equal before law. And everybody is entitled to equal protection of law. You may be a man, you may be a woman, you may be a transgender, you may belong to one religion, you may belong to one region, you may speak one language, you may belong to one caste, you may belong to one tribe. Makes no difference. All are Indians. What do you say in our school times in the assembly? India is my country. All Indians are my brothers and sisters. Yes, so Amar is my brother, Kanchan is my sister. So every one of us, we belong to one humanity. That is the beauty of this constitution. And this constitution recognizes dignity. This word is very important. So India is a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. And this country guarantees justice, social, economic, and political, equality of opportunity and status, liberty of faith, belief, worship, thought, expression. Probably it starts with thought and expression. Thought, expression, faith, belief, worship. And then it promotes fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual. That is the beauty of my constitution, our constitution. That's the beauty of our country. So your dignity does not depend on whether you have one eye, whether you have two eyes or no eyes. It does not depend on whether you have your IQ is quite high as a scientist, or you have a low IQ. It does not depend on whether you have one hand or two hands. It does not depend on whether you have one leg or two legs. It does not depend on whether you hear or you speak. It depends only on one factor, that you are a citizen of this country. It is this dignity we have to be aware of. So my dear sisters and brothers, don't think that you are living at the mercy of anybody. Don't think that you have a right to get the mercy of anybody. No. You have a right to get a dignified treatment from the rest of the country. That may be your society, that may be your professional field, that may be your fellows. So the protection of dignity of the people, irrespective of gender, irrespective of religion, irrespective of caste, irrespective of creed, irrespective of language, irrespective of region, and irrespective of your physical being or intellectual capacity, position or possession. Doesn't matter at all. So we should be aware of this. But the whole problem is, unfortunately, those who have ears don't hear. Those who have eyes don't see. That is the problem. So how to make them hear? How to make them see? That is precisely the question before us. We call beautiful words like sensitization, etc. Kanchan referred to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is the guardian of the Constitution of India. No? It doesn't have a ramp. Orthopedically challenged person cannot have any access. You will have to be simply lifted. He will have to be simply lifted. He or she will be simply lifted in a wheelchair. Suppose in crutches, very difficult to climb the steps. So the first place where we should start with is actually, to make our Supreme Court friendly for challenged persons, visually, orthopedically, mentally, and whatnot. Let's start from there. Unfortunately, I plead, I am also responsible because I did not notice this when I was a judge there for more than 5 years. I thought there is some action because we judges don't go to that site. We go to a different place and go to court, come back straight. But now I realize that there is no access to it. When Kanchan spoke, I realized that there is no place for a ramp to go in. So accessibility in terms of physical accessibility is very important in any institution. See, if you read, this is a 2016 Act. This is why I'm saying, it's not a charity. It is the constitutional obligation, the statutory obligation. Statutory obligation is a constitutional obligation because any statute is made under the Constitution. So under the 2016 Act, persons, the rights of disabled persons, if you remember right, that the Act itself says the rights of persons with disabilities. And that enactment came to give effect to the UN Convention, which India has ratified. And the key principles on which that legislation is founded? First is dignity. Second is autonomy. Third is non-discrimination. Fourth is effective participation. Fifth is inclusion. And sixth is respect. So on these 6 principles, this Act has come into effect. Whether those principles are respected by those people who should respect is the question before us. And that's why I must refer to Section 12, since it is better that we understand the legal perspective also. That section starts with the title Access to Justice. The appropriate government shall ensure that persons with disabilities are able to exercise the right to access any court. Necessarily it is Supreme Court. That's why I said it should start with Supreme Court down to the level of the Court of Civil Judge Junior Division. All high courts, all district courts, all senior division courts, all junior division courts, all tribunals, all commissions, wherever you have people to go and seek justice, and wherever, since we are speaking about lawyers, and wherever the lawyers are permitted to appear for the people, they should have a friendly access, in the sense, there should be, the navigation should be in such a way, there should be a provision for navigation. That is a part of our constitutional obligation to respect their dignity. As otherwise, we won't be respecting the thing. That's why I said it's not a charity. It is the right. We call it a fundamental right. What's a fundamental right? It's so fundamental to my life and existence as a citizen. That's why it's called fundamental right. And if you have a right, you don't beg. If you have a right, you ask. If you have no right only, then you ask for the mercy of somebody. But if it is a matter of right, you get it enforced if it is not given. So that the provision says the appropriate government shall ensure that persons with disabilities are able to exercise the right to access any court, tribunal, authority, commission, or any other body having judicial or quasi-judicial or investigative powers, which includes police stations also, without discrimination on the basis of disability. Does provision need any clarification? Many provisions require interpretation, but I don't think section 12(1) of this rights of persons with disability requires any clarification. But is it implemented? Where is the compliance of this provision? So Sanchita, I am giving you enough clue that after this COVID, the first public interest litigation you should file in Supreme Court, that is the Supreme Court itself should make that court friendly for people with disabilities. For proper compliance of physical access to persons with disabilities. And you should also ask, since the Supreme Court should also ask for such a similar provision in all the high courts, in all the judicial courts, authorities, commissions, everywhere. As for a compliance, there are a lot of public interest litigations there. We are not adding to it, but we are only asking for rights of people who are otherwise not in a position to have a proper and effective access to protect their dignity, nothing else. Is again, the question is dignity. We speak so much about constitutional morality, etc. And constitutional morality, one important aspect is this dignity. So this constitution is not only of butcher, baker and candlestick maker. It is not only of migrant workers and ASHA workers and Safai Karandaris. It is a constitution of mine and yours. A constitution of and for the persons with disabilities. Yeah. And then 12.2. 12.2. The appropriate government, that means center or any government, shall take steps to put in place suitable support measures for persons with disabilities. Do we have a toilet which is friendly for persons with disabilities in such public places like a Supreme Court? Let's start with Supreme Court again, or high courts, or another. Do we have a? We see in airports, since we have been traveling so much, we have seen in airports, but I have not seen a place reserved. But if you travel, since I'm saying I'm not boasting, but I've traveled abroad. I've seen such provisions to protect the dignity of such people by providing suitable toilets which are friendly for them to use. Whether you have a hearing problem, whether you have a visual problem, whether you have an orthopedic problem, whether you have a mental problem, whether you need somebody to assist you for that also. For all such, such a spacious room with the support systems, all are provided. And the way they respect these people, nobody else will use it also. A lot of respect is given to them. So that's why I said, we should have eyes to see and ears to hear. Not for any compassion. I say constitutional compassion is not a mercy of a judge. Constitutional compassion is actually the right of the person entitled to get it. So it is in that angle I am making these observations. And support measures for persons with disabilities, especially those living outside family and those disabled, requiring high support for exercising legal rights. So what is this high support? High support is one thing which I said. And as Kanchan said, at least what you call a place where people won't excuse. Unfortunately, in an SLP, the admission day in Supreme Court is very difficult for ladies to get into a court and argue a case. But at least, we should have some sort of a reservation for some chair at least one chair each in a court. Where such a person comes, that person should have that chair in the front. If such a person is not there, of course, it can be occupied by anybody else. But we should have a reserved chair for persons, the lawyers with a disability, if coming to court, to occupy a respectable place in front of the court, because lawyer has to communicate with the judge. And of course, the sensitization of the judges is very important. They are very busy, no doubt about it. But suppose they have a child of a same problem and who is a lawyer, then they will understand. It is where this parent patria concept comes in. All are my children. For the court, all are their children, because court is the guardian of such people. If you go to CPC also, see, it's actually all the framers of this constitution, the laws have taken care of these concepts. But at the implementation level, we are very poor. We are deaf. We are blind in implementation. So we should open their eyes. We should open their ears in the matter of implementation to protect the dignity, not to get some charity for them, no, to protect the dignity of our brothers and sisters, treating them as my own brothers and sisters, because India is my country. All Indians are my brothers and sisters. That's the root concept we should have. Then all this caste, creed, ability, gender, everything will go. This is where we should teach our children to respect others as brother and sister. Then you will know who is your mother, you will know who is your sister, then you will know who is your brother. Unfortunately, we don't teach them this. We only teach them how to consume faster, how to consume better. From this consumeristic culture, we should get rid of our children, youngsters, teaching them to respect the dignity of others, the individuality and the dignity of other person, be it a girl, be it a transgender, be it a boy, be it a child, be it whoever it be, disabled, whatever it is. Yes. And these categories are entitled to get additional respect. This is where I want to conclude. And again, I said it's not a charity. Why do we have special provisions for women? Because they are entitled to get higher respect. Why do we have special provisions for disabled persons? Because they are entitled to get a higher respect. So that is how we have to tackle these issues. We have to approach these people. We have to get these things protected and implemented also. I don't want to continue this. I have a lot more to say, but I'm saying the sensitization of those in power is very important. They should open their ears and they should open their eyes. In that establishment which I started with, I told them, see, there are a lot of things which a person with who is 100% blind can do. Only thing is that you should train that person of the things that they can do. It's your problem that you did not train. Had you trained that lady to do the things which she could, she would have done wonders in your establishment. It hardly required a trainer to be brought to that establishment and given them maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks training. Marvelous works that lady would have done. They don't do that. Instead of the curse, the one who supported for the employment every day, you have given a nuisance to your institution. You have wasted the manpower of somebody else also. Not only one person is getting salary without any employment, another person also is given to support that person. Is our mindset that's the problem. If you could simply train that blind lady to do some work, respectable work in an establishment, she would have trained and done it better with a far better commitment than anybody else. That you don't do, that is your statutory obligation. Without doing that, you continue cursing the one who inducted her there. They continue cursing as if, this is a big burden given to them. It's not a burden. It's actually your obligation. Thank you. I can't stop. I know when I speak these things, I don't stop, but I have to stop because since time is running out. Thank you. All the best and God bless you. Jai Hind. I wish you all the best. And I pledge my solidarity and assure you of my all support for any such cause you take.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So just wanted to add that there is an elevator in the Supreme Court that's just next to the canteen and takes you to near court number 4. So there is an elevator, but the point is wherever there's a staircase, there has to be a ramp. That's not really there. And to make that point, when Javed Abidi Saab was contesting a case in Supreme Court, he made it a point to take the stairs every day on the wheelchair so that all the lawyers could see. And even people like Meenakshi Arora ma'am, they remember that, like Arun Jaitley Saab also would say, that they still remember how he made that point just to remind people that this is missing. Also, I mean, just because it came up, the heavyweight curtains near the door, they don't really work for anybody. So I guess we now can close it with the closing remarks of Dr. Professor Chaudhary. After that, we can take the questions. So Professor Chaudhary, he is the Vice Chancellor of APG University, Shimla, and he is the former Pro Vice Chancellor of Sage University, Indore. He's a professor in computer sciences and engineering. He's a specialist in artificial intelligence in case we need some AI support from him. Over to you, Professor Chaudhary.
I am Professor Ramesh Chaudhary. I forgot to address you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Sanchita. It's a broad privilege for me and for my university, APG Shimla University, to greet Justice Kurian Joseph, Advocate Mr. Amar Jain, Advocate Ms. Kanchan, and Sanchita as a moderator. It was a wonderful program. Because of this COVID-19, we are also doing everyday webinar. And I'm thankful to the LawSikho to collaborate with the APG Shimla University. The School of Law and Legal Studies is a law school at the APG Shimla University. And I'm happy a lot of students have joined, a lot of, I mean to say, advocates have joined. And I will like to compliment Honorable Justice. Once we have announced that we are going to collaborate, I tell you, you have a deep relationship with Himachal Pradesh, and people still remember you, and everybody has a wonderful man, not as a justice, not because of you were the Chief Justice at the Himachal. People have a very sweet memory, and everybody was quite happy that you are coming on the webinar in a collaboration with LawSikho. So I'm really, and once I listen to you, it was wonderful, and every speaker has contributed, and I tell you that really in India, it is required to more sensitized about the disability. I tell you, Justice Kurian has already shared the difference between the other countries and India, especially Europe and the US once we talk. And I have a real experience when I was a Bournemouth in the UK, and I was standing at the bus stand, and then I saw that bus has been stopped and driver is get down from the bus. I didn't understand why it has happened, and because some physically challenged or people was there, and driver get down, and then driver enable him to get in the bus himself and then make him comfortable. Once you will travel abroad, you will see that kind of respect. Basically, this respect comes from the heart, nothing like that. They have been nurtured, and that is remarking. But of course, we in India is also things are progressing. And once we will do such a webinar, definitely it will create sensitivity about the, and I'm very surprised that guardian of the law, the Supreme Court, and guardian of the constitutions, and then there is some problem, and then once there is some challenges lawyering with the disabilities, and it's a matter of concern. But I'm very optimistic, and hopefully this webinar will lead and a lot of people have joined on the YouTube. Very large number of the this webinar is live, and people are listening us. And then I will like to exchange the Delhi is a very warm, but today Shimla is a very cold. It was a heavy rain. It's a wonderful weather here. So I will like to again extend our warm greetings and look forward to it. And it was really very, very good kind of contributions. And you will be very happy to see, because everywhere Shimla University have the students from 28 countries. A lot of international students from different countries have joined, and they are listening you. And we will keep the webinar has been organized, and thankful to the LawSikho, Ramanujan Mukherjee, to give us an opportunity, and we look forward for. As a computing guy, once you have said, yes, but this computing technology, especially advanced computing and artificial intelligence, has worked a lot of, and then people I have seen in the chat box also, people are appreciating that really to some extent the technology and gadgets had made the life easier to the these disabled people. And the most important thing which I have remarked with the justice, that it's not that you are doing charity. It's our responsibility as a society to enable them and to make them feel comfortable and to make them equal opportunity. So thank you again, and thank you to all School of Law and Legal Studies of the APG Shimla University participating in a good number. So wish you have a nice evening. Thank you, sir. Shimla and Himachal is remembering you a lot. I had a conversation with so many people, and they were saying, wonderful man, wonderful justice even the Himachal has seen.
Thank you, Justice
Kurian sir.
Thank you,
Sanchita.
Thank you, Professor Chaudhary. I would just like to read out some comments from chat box. This is for Kanchan ma'am. Respected ma'am, your grit, determination, perseverance, consistency towards the legal profession is commendable. Ritu, she's an assistant professor of law at APG University, Shimla. Kanchan ma'am, Bhavana says, Kanchan ma'am, you reached your goal with sheer determination. Hats off to you.
Sanchita,
yes,
say,
yes, ma'am.
I've been hearing the talk of charity is not charity, etc. I'm grateful that it's not charity. I'm just not grateful that there is hindrance and obstruction. I am not expecting charity. I'm not expecting relaxation. I'm not expecting any adjustments beyond the fact that what is required by law. But the amount of obstruction and destruction and the wrongs that happen in the name of not doing charity or doing charity. So some are so good that they over-charitize, okay? So this word of charity, I do not expect that. I'm expecting equality before the law. I only go by Article 14. But unfortunately, I'd say the courts, there is a PIL already pending for the last 10 years in the Supreme Court about the accessibility of places, including the Supreme Court itself. There are a couple of other cases pending regarding the accessibility of documents. We don't follow those as well. And Amar and I cannot function if the documents are not properly done up. They're not properly entered in. I'm hoping that the new systems in place after COVID will incorporate all those. But I'm specifically referring to the judgment in Surendra Mohan given by the Supreme Court of India, saying that lawyers cannot read, they cannot write, they will not be able to ascertain, they have no faculties. I'm a little disappointed. If in 2019, 18 and 19, if that is what the Supreme Court still thinks of me, then I haven't done any work for the last 25 years or not achieved anything. So I'd like the Supreme Court to then think about it again. You're not giving me charity. You're not even letting me do my work in peace. If I want to be a judge, I really don't want to be personally, but if I had to want to be a judge, then why does somebody say I cannot be a judge and I cannot do what is supposed to be done? Can I not control a courtroom? Of course I can control a courtroom. I think I can pick up sounds better than anybody else. Can I not understand the rules? Of course I can read them. There are manuals for me to read, and the manuals are now accessible and they are available online. So I'd like to only ask the Honorable Justice, what was happening when Surendra Mohan's case was decided? If Sanchita, you can pass on the judgment right now to refresh Justice memory, maybe.
I think he has excellent
Kanchan,
memory.
you want me to respond to that now? Straight away, I can respond to that. Yeah. Yeah, Kanchan, I want to say, the Supreme Court was considering whether somebody was, Surendra Mohan, somebody was, fit enough to be appointed as a civil judge junior division. So what was in the mind of the court, I'm just reading the mind of the court, was that, when you take evidence, can you see the body language of the witness and then appreciate the evidence? That was one aspect which went through. And of course, something which Amar mentioned about the accessibility to the documents, since the technology is not updated. But for your information, I had a good friend who is 100% blind, but who became a judge in the Supreme Court of South Africa. He used to come many times to India also. We have, I'm sure many of you would have listened to him. Does anybody remember his name, full name? I used to call him Mohammed Saab, yes. Yeah. He used to just carry his simple instrument and he is a judge of the Supreme Court, quite long now. Yeah. Therefore, Kanchan, the Supreme Court did not say that lawyers are not lawyers with the disability of visual disability are not fit to be appointed as judges in the High Court and Supreme Court. They only said for a civil judge junior division, when you conduct a trial, probably they may have a little difficulty because you will not be able to assess the body language of the witness. That's why they said, the nature of the jobs to be performed by the holder of the post. Whereas for a High Court judge, there is no such problem. For a Supreme Court, there is no problem. So I wish, they take somebody to those positions, though not a civil judge junior division.
So how do we repair the damage done? It's a big damage. We've lost the review petition as well. How do we repair the damage? I have to rectify this. If the last thing I do for my people, that's the one judgment I have to set aside. So please help. I don't know what to go to for a curative petition, to go to a bigger bench. I don't know what to do with that judgment. I have to get rid of it.
That review is pending now?
No, review is gone.
Dismissed.
So.
Review is dismissed. Then you are only the curative. Yeah.
Yes. That's a big one for us. So.
No, that is one curative, and second, there's a third method, So third method is, you can take away the what you call the root of the judgment by an appropriate legislation. That's not the end of the world. A judgment of the Supreme Court is not the end of the world. You can have an appropriate legislation in place.
Great. So, Kanchan, I think Justice Joseph has answered it to the best of I mean, you can't really expect him to go beyond this. And we'll, of course, give it a fight. We'll give curative petition a fight. We'll fight for a legislation. And he's right about the fact that it wasn't meant for High Court or Supreme Court. So you have to look into the facts of the case and decide accordingly. So I'm just opening it for further questions from the audience. If you have any questions, you can either write in the chat box, or you can give us any indication like reactions, yes, raise hand. We will unmute you then, and you can ask your questions to the speaker. Anybody has a question?
Sanchita, you can tell the audience that we have a beautiful interpreter, Nataraja.
Yes.
Yeah. So that, you know, those people who are not able to hear also, they can ask questions. He will interpret it and give.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. There's a question here. Why not go live stream or online with all procedures in Supreme Court, especially in case of disabled? This is Anuj Gupta, Assistant Professor of APG Shimla University.
I think that there is already a case pending in Supreme Court, and they have passed some orders that they are not our street, but only the technology has to be in place. I think slowly it is coming up. Right. And now they're compelled to have it also, because, you know, since it's a virtual court, it is virtual everywhere. You can't, it's not something restricted between the judge and the lawyer and the clients. You know, it's in the virtual world.
Right, sir. So I guess that is it. I don't see any other questions here. There are many comments here that we have already gone through. Mostly they're appreciating you all and this session. There's also an issue about Muruganathan has been pointing out the issue with that you cannot read it even with OCR, the court documents. That has already been discussed. This issue has already been discussed here by Amar. And he also talks about Kuttuswamy and how international law has to be construed as part of domestic law in absence of legislation. So we already have a very good disability law at the moment at the national level. It's just time for its interpretation. It's time for its implementation, I guess, through all ways possible. So I think we can conclude the session here unless anybody has to say anything.
Sanchita, there's a question about software. I'll start with it and Amar can conclude that, because I'll just start with the basic software that I use. And because I use the least, and Amar, of course, uses much more advanced. I use an iPhone, and it has a software, an app called VoiceOver, which is inbuilt in the iPhone. It reads me my emails, it reads me my messages, my WhatsApp, it reads me all my documents that I need. Recently, I have started converting my my images into text, which reads through Voice Dream Reader, another app. On my computer, I use something called NVDA. I used to use a paid software called JAWS. Now I use an open source NVDA. It reads me everything I need. I can work with Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, the internet, and my emails, of course. What I cannot do in great detail is, of course, the internet, because I'm not great at it, and Amar will tell you more about that. But other than that, most of my work I can do myself. There is Dragon software for dictation, which a lot of other lawyers, non-disabled lawyers, use, but I prefer typing it out. It's an ordinary keyboard. I use an ordinary laptop and an ordinary iPhone. It's not something different. But luckily for us, the iPhone starts talking as soon as you buy it from the shop. You don't need to do anything much to it. You don't need any help and assistance in that. And as work-wise, I do all my work myself. I do not like printing, so I leave it to others to print. And Amar can tell you the rest of the softwares that he uses.
So just taking over, Kanchan ma'am, thanks. So basically, if you see today, whatever is machine readable is in our control. So for example, you have Kanchan ma'am already spoke about the screen reader like JAWS, VoiceOver, that facilitates. So what gets displayed on screen gets read out. For scanned documents and for printed documents, somebody mentioned that you are not able to OCR them. I think it's a work in progress. Artificial intelligence has improved a lot. You can definitely use various softwares. For example, Fine Reader is one such software which you can use. You have Envision AI, which is a very good software. So even artificial intelligence is now reaching to a stage where even handwritten text is possible to be read out. Yes, it is definitely difficult when you get handwritten comments and all. It's right now not doable. But otherwise, there are many softwares in terms of artificial intelligence and otherwise which can help you do the even the tasks like due diligence and all, which I mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Amar. So, Monica, can you please unmute the participants one by one who have to ask questions?
So, Ishita Negi, you have raised your hand. We are unmuting you. Please go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Hi, Samanika. I am not being able to unmute her. You can just move on to another person.
Okay. Rajesh sir, you have also raised your hand. Please go ahead. Bhavna, can you unmute Rajesh sir?
Yeah, just a second. He's just being unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
On unmute.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Amar sir, would you kindly tell us something about the drafting softwares which you use for writing?
Sure, sir. So for drafting, commonly we use, of course, MS Word remains to be the main sort of tool which we use for drafting and formatting. Then there are specialized plugins, and these are not specifically meant for people with disability, but there are plugins which, like Grammarly, you have Litera, you have other sorts of plugin providers. You for table of content, clause referencing, all of those sorts of things. But otherwise, your main tool remains as the MS Word.
Okay, thank you, sir. So can we have a list of the software, sir, by some way?
Sure, sir. If you could just email me, my email ID is pretty simple, amarjain@amarjain.com. If you could email me, I'd be more than happy to help you.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
I use Dragon Professional. I use Dragon Professional version 15. That you can just train it and use it. You can type as fast as you speak. It types for you.
Yeah.
Next
thank
is
you.
5+, but you haven't connected your audio. Kindly connect your audio so that we can unmute you and you can ask your question. Next is AB5. Your device name is coming. Your name is not coming. Please go ahead. Please raise your hand.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. This was just in response some information which seemed to have slipped. Some information which seemed to have slipped the people. That my name is incidentally Vikram Dutt, and I had a junior colleague whom I had recruited as principal of a college as an assistant professor in law, and he appeared for the Delhi Judicial Service and failed medically because he is bipolar. So the matter went to the High Court of Delhi, and about 10 days ago, the High Court has ruled in his favor. So this is a very big movement forward. Kanchan, I don't know if you are aware of this case.
No.
Bhavya Nain. Yeah, it's Bhavya Nain versus the state. Bhavya Nain. I have put it into, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
This is a very big breakthrough.
Thank you.
Vikram, what was the disability, Vikram?
He is, sir, bipolar, your lordship.
Bipolar, okay.
Bipolar, huh. And it was a DB in the High Court, I think Chief Justice, and one more. The other person has been an old student from my school, and they ruled that bipolar cannot be cured. So the lower court had held that bipolar is a treatable disease.
Yeah,
and therefore,
exactly. I wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Bipolar is something which can be, it is like diabetic.
Yes,
it's
it
like
can be
your BP. It can be controlled and managed.
It can be managed, it cannot be cured. So that is what the High Court said and upheld his selection under the disability quota.
That's what I said, no, diabetic. Diabetic.
Absolutely.
It's a high profile disease, so people just start. So bipolar is not a high profile disease, there's a problem.
Yeah. And there is a lot of, Professor Nimish Desai and I were involved in the drafting of the mental illness bill. So there are a lot of people who are not yet aware of the understanding of mental illness. Though in the revised Disability Act, mental illness has been included as one of the 19. In the previous act, only 4 were included. So things are moving.
Yeah. It should move. It should be, because the mindset should change. That's the only thing.
Yeah. In fact, somebody who Sanchita and I both know very closely He's a former law minister. About 20 years ago, a class fellow who was then manager IBM, we approached him maybe 25 years ago that, it's time you start computerizing the Supreme Court. And we were laughed at. He said, yeah, you are a friend, so I can't do anything more than laugh. Sanchita, you and I will know who we are talking about. Next time we'll have a coffee of him on his remarks 25 years ago.
Thank you, Professor Dutt. We know the efforts he made as a law minister to make courts paperless as well.
Oh, yes, of course. So that is where we have moved. It's great that 25 years ago people didn't understand it. Today we are saying, can we have a blind judge, and why not? We had a blind attorney general in West Bengal,
Absolutely.
Sadhan Gupta.
Yeah.
We have a blind Supreme Court. I think it's called the Federal Court in Germany. So the time has come for India too.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Dutt, for your valuable comments. Samanika, can we please unmute? I think Ritu Panta, she's Galaxy A20. She has a question, if you can unmute her.
Good evening to all of you present here. As ma'am has already introduced me, I'm assistant professor and working in APG University, Shimla. I think my question would be to Honorable Justice Kurian. Sir, I listened to your valuable words, and time and again you have talked about the sensitivity drives that we need to conduct. I have a suggestion to make. I don't know whether it's appropriate. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
Sir, I have a suggestion to make. It's just a suggestion that could we incorporate the sensitivity drives towards the disabled people as part of our professional ethics, because that will actually suffice the purpose, because just talking about sensitivity drives and all these things towards the disabled people, I think we need to draw sort of a harmony between the disabled people and the people who are not suffering from disability. So
Yeah,
that
ma'am,
way,
ma'am, I agree with you. If you closely analyze our fundamental duty, you can see that also. That I agree with you. And in the process, it should start from the Advocates Act, the regulations, and we should make our law college also friendly. How many law colleges in the country are friendly for these disabled people? We spoke about Supreme Court, High Courts, etc. But our students, how do students go there? So I think we should start from that stage onwards. The educational institutions should be made friendly for them. Law and below that also. But since we are speaking about law colleges, law only, I'm saying all the law colleges in the country should have a friendly, accessible infrastructural facility there for the challenged people.
So if I may add there, IDIA under the guidance of Shamnath Bashir had been trying to do this. They have a national vertical for disabled, where they have been struggling with the national law universities and other law colleges to develop such kind of process and a system where the universities are universities do provide such facilities to the students, but the struggle is just the same.
Samanika, only Danda, this country, whole problem with our country is, only Danda will do anything. So this Danda from Supreme Court or the respective High Court in the state of which you are speaking probably will do something.
Sure, sir. So due to the paucity of time, let's, ma'am, if you may permit, we'll take only 2 more questions.
Yeah, I think so. We have to, this time is out. Yeah.
So Mr. Murugan Natham, we are unmuting you. Please go ahead.
Actually, I have a question. Actually, it's a form of a simple discussion.
Please go ahead.
Sir, I think there's some bandwidth error at your end. You are not audible.
I think even type your comments, sir. We'll read it out. All of us can read it out in the section. Maybe you unmute the next.
Yes. Natasha, please go. We'll be unmuted.
Muruganathan, is some problem with your technology, what to do. It's not your problem with your faculties, but the problem is with the technology. So just type out your question, Sanchita will take care of. I think you can give the last question somebody is asking.
Yes, Natasha Pinto, you've raised your hand. We've unmuted you. Please go ahead. I don't think they are willing to ask. I think we've already covered the questions then.
Great, no problem. So thank you so much everyone for joining us. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you Justice Joseph, Ms. Kanchan Pamnani and Mr. Jain, Professor Chaudhary. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being there. Thank you all the participants for being so wonderful and for participating in the discussion. Thank you Nataraja for being so useful and so effective today. Thank you so much.
And let me also thank you, the organizers, for having thought of a thoughtful, very meaningful program, because we always thought of so many others, but we never thought of this particular group. It has been very meaningful, very thoughtful. It's nice and kind of you to have done this. Thank you all very much. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay blessed. God bless you, and Jai Hind.
Thank you everyone on behalf of LawSikho. We are ending the meeting. Stay safe.